And now what CCM today is not even anything like the classic CCM that I grew up with in the 70s and 80s. And I hear people complain, oh man, CCM is so boring, it's redundant, it's this. You hear a lot of CCM critics. And I ask him, I says, well, have you ever heard of Second Chapter of Acts? Have you ever heard of Phil Keaggy? Have you ever heard of Michael Omartian? Randy Stonehill. Now, most people have heard of Keith Green, Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, and Sandy Patty. Those are your three marquee CCM artists, but the lower ones that aren't as quite as recognized. So we have a vast wealth of CCM music that's not being heard, it's not being recognized. So really my channel is really dedicated to featuring these obscure, overlooked, underappreciated CCM artists and bringing them into light. So that's what CCM Drummer is about.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters in That podcast. I'm your host Brian, and joining me today is a special guest hailing from Brazil, Matthew Jackson. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Where in Brazil are you?
Well, we're in the state of Sao Paulo, and I live in a small town, about 250,000 people. It's called Hortolândia, and it's about 100 kilometers or 60 miles northwest of the city of Sao Paulo.
You know, it's always funny too when people say kilometers because it seems like it's only in the States that we use miles. So
it is. Yeah, everybody else is metric.
Yeah, it's the metric system, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I always think back to the Pulp Fiction scene where did you ever watch Pulp Fiction first off?
I watched it.
Yeah.
I watched it 2 or 3 times. I shouldn't be admitting that, but
yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah, the quarter pounder. They had another word for the quarter pounder. I remember that.
The Royale with cheese. It was the metric system. And it's like, check out the big brains on Brett. You a smart motherfucker. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. How'd you end up in Brazil?
Well, my wife's Brazilian, and she's from Brazil. And of course, she moved to America. We met, got married, and after the kids were grown out of the house and I lost my job, and we just started, we thought, well, we'd come back to Brazil. And I have a Brazilian green card.
Oh, I see. And how long have you guys been married?
We've been married for 18 years.
Congratulations. That's an achievement there.
Thank you.
So this podcast here, obviously we had a nice little discussion in the chat and in the comments during my last recent podcast video. So I think you kind of see like how the whole thing goes here. So
Sure.
Got some questions here so we get to know you both as a drummer and an individual. So you ready?
Sure. Fire away.
All right. So let's expand more on that story of how you got to Brazil. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into drumming?
Well, when I was a kid, anytime I would see a band, whether it's a live performance or on TV, I'd always focus in on the drummer. My eyes would always gravitate towards the drummer, and I'd be watching what the drummer's doing. I was always intrigued. And then one time my family went out to an Asian restaurant. I don't remember if it was Chinese or Japanese, but either way, they both eat with chopsticks. So they serve you chopsticks with your meal. They give you the chopsticks. And after the meal, you can take your chopsticks home with you. And so I would take my chopsticks home with me, and I started using my chopsticks and pretending they were drumsticks. And I'd get pillows, boxes, pots or pans, or whatever I could do to contrive some sort of makeshift drum set with that. And my dad saw that. So one day he went to the music store, bought a pair of sticks, a practice pad, and a method book written by Haskell W. Haar. And he gave it to me. He says, "Here, if you're gonna beat around on stuff, beat around on the practice pad with real sticks." And then the following year, I enrolled in band when I went into junior high or middle school. And then the rest is history. I learned to play the mallet instruments, the bells, the glockenspiel, the xylophone, timpani, and was in marching band. The whole. I'm sure this is a common tell among a lot of drummers. That's how we all got our start. Many of them.
Yeah, that's normally how it goes. It's normally like anything that we can hit within sight. That's what we want to do, especially at a young kid's age. It seems like you always want to do. I was maybe thinking you always want to like hit something or something like that. I think what it is, like the pillow. I know maybe there's a chance of like playing with your toys and probably accidentally fall down steps and stuff like that. I don't know if that was anything that you went through. I know that's what happened with me and my
we
childhood.
didn't have steps in my house, but I got my first drum set when I was in the 9th grade. I remember that. And then in the 10th grade, I played the drum set well enough where I could play in the stage band. So really, it wasn't until I was in 9th grade where I really got into drum set playing.
Being fully committed, that sort of thing, yeah. Were you like part of any bands or any time, or are you just mainly doing strictly band work?
Well, it started out strictly band work, and then as I got older, I was in a couple of garage bands, but they never got off the ground. I started making money professionally as a drummer playing country music. Now, I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and back in 1976, the mid 70s, 75, 76, 77, and this was just right around when disco was just coming out, because disco came out in 75. But disco really didn't become prime time in the Houston area. In 76, it was still popular in New York and LA, but it took a while. But if you wanted to make money in the bars and clubs, you had to play country music. So that's what I did. I got my start playing country music. There were a few clubs that did have rock bands, but you had to be really, really good to play rock music in Houston back in the 70s. Now, times have changed. Houston's much more diversified in its music culture today than it was back then. But yeah, back then, if you wanted to play and make money, it had to be country music. And it was hard country, crying in your beer, my wife left me kind of country. It wasn't the modern progressive country as we know it today with, like Winona Judd, Brooks and Dunn, Diamond Rio, that kind of country didn't exist back in those times. So yeah, it was boring, but hey, I got paid.
Yeah. As long as we get paid to pay the bills and that sort of thing. The big story I always hear is like, it was always like if it was country music stars, they always went to like Nashville for whatever reason. Because I watched like the Ken Burns documentary series about that whole thing about how country music got started and everything and how it got so prominent in Nashville. Were you ever in Nashville by any chance?
No, not musically. In 77, I rededicated my life to Christ. Went to Bible school in the fall of 77. And in this Bible school, they had a music program and they needed a drummer. So I played in a Christian band for about a year, a little over a year. And that was a cover band too. We just played Christian covers. Now, we did have maybe 4 or 5 originals. That was our own, but it was mostly a cover band. But so yeah, I have experience playing in both secular and in Christian groups, and of course I play in church, church bands are, for all practical intents and purposes, cover bands, unless you can write some of your own praise songs, which some of the bigger churches do. But yeah, so I've been on both sides of the spectrum.
That's what CCM stands for, Christian Contemporary Music.
Contemporary Christian music. Yeah, contemporary first. But that's okay.
Yeah, either or. But I guess what made you choose the name? Just to keep it nice and simple.
CCM. Well, the reason I chose that is that my channel basically is dedicated to featuring the CCM classics of the 70s and 80s and early 90s. Now, the problem today is when a lot of people think of CCM, they automatically think of Matt Redman, Chris Tomlin, Hillsong, Elevation, and Bethel. You know, they think of the worship music. Well, that, to me, now I've had online debates about this, and there's no way I can win this debate, okay? I don't think what they call worship music is really CCM, okay? But I'll never win that argument, okay? But that's just my opinion. Now, back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, CCM and worship, now back then they called it praise and worship, okay? They didn't call it worship, they call it praise and worship, and they put it all together and made it sound like one word, praise and worship, you know. But back in those days, praise and worship and CCM were two completely different genres, okay, completely. And in fact, if you wanted to buy CCM music back in those days, you did not go to Sound Warehouse and buy your CCM music mixed in with the secular music like you can today, like at Barnes & Noble or Borders. You could do that. But back in those days, if you wanted to buy CCM or praise and worship, you had to go to a Christian bookstore to do that, okay? So they were not, those products were not marketed in secular stores. So you would go into a Christian music store and you would see the books over here, the trinkets over here, and then the music over here, okay? Then you go to the music section, and the music section was subdivided. You had your traditional hymns, you had your gospel, which is the black music that the black people like to sing in their churches.
Yeah.
And then you had praise and worship. And then you had CCM, okay? And back then, they were separate. And so you sang praise and worship music in church on Sunday morning or Sunday evening, whenever it is you went to church. There wasn't a lot of CCM music being played in church, and you didn't really hear a lot of praise and worship music being played on the CCM radio channels. There was a definitive line back in those days. But somewhere in the mid to late 90s and the early 2000s, the worship and the CCM music started to morph. And now what CCM today is not even anything like the classic CCM that I grew up with in the 70s and 80s. And I hear people complain, oh man, CCM is so boring, it's redundant, it's this. You know, you hear a lot of CCM critics. And I ask them, I says, well, have you ever heard of Second Chapter of Acts? Have you ever heard of Phil Keaggy? Have you ever heard of Michael Omartian? Randy Stonehill? Now, most people have heard of Keith Green, Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, and Sandy Patty. Those are your three marquee CCM artists, but the lower ones that aren't as quite as recognized. So we have a vast wealth of CCM music that's not being heard, it's not being recognized. So really my channel is really dedicated to featuring these obscure, overlooked, underappreciated CCM artists and bringing them into light. So that's what CCM Drummer is about.
Absolutely, it's a good message too. And I have to admit, it was totally new to me too, because I tend to listen to more, you would call it the more secular kind of music too, but it was more meant to be like the fun kind of stuff, because, you know, a lot of the big bands coming out of the 70s too, you had like this whole change, the music got heavier, that sort of thing. So you had bands like Kiss, The Who, Black Sabbath, Dio, all those groups right there. They kind of sing about sex, drugs, rock and roll, and kind of dark themes and stuff here and there. So did you also kind of get into that too, or was that just kind of...
Yeah, in the early 70s, I was into Chicago big time. In fact, Danny Seraphin was one of my big influences. I love Danny. I love the way he played. Back then, I played cross-handed with a traditional grip because Danny played that way. Oh, also we were using the traditional grip in the school band as well because I was taught that way. And then later, John Bonham was a big influence. Ian Pace with Deep Purple was a big influence on me. Now, after I rededicated my life to Christ and was in the Christian scene, the evangelical scene, another drummer that really influenced me his name is Jack Kelly. He played for Second Chapter of Acts. I went to a Second Chapter of Acts concert in 1982. He was the first drummer I ever saw that played open-handed. So he had a right-handed setup. His hi-hat was on the left side of his kit, and his right cymbal was on the right side. And when he rode his hi-hat, he used his left hand. And then when he rode the right cymbal, he used his right hand. He was ambidextrous. And at that time I saw the concert, I was out of drums. I wasn't playing drums at that time. But I saw that. I go, man, that is so cool. That is so practical. You know, because it does make perfect sense. If the freaking hi-hat's on the freaking left side of your freaking kit, why not use your freaking left hand? It makes perfect. I was going, wow, why didn't I think of that? So when I got back into drums, I trained my left hand. I said, okay, Mr. Left Hand, you're going to ride this hi-hat. Okay, I'm not crossing the right over to play. And I just, for like 6 months, I just trained, practice. And it took about 6 months. It wasn't easy because, you know, I'm a right-handed person and it's difficult using your offhand when you haven't had them. But I just determined and I did it. Now it's like second nature.
Yeah, I always know, like, it's kind of a problem with me too, because I tend to play more of the fast music. I don't know if you've seen like any of the covers I was doing on my channel, but
yeah, I've seen a few.
I do more of the metal stuff, so it's obviously playing fast. So sometimes if it's like really fast, I'll sometimes do it with the left hand, and then the right hand's hitting the snare, for instance. But most of the time, it's crossing over, that sort of thing. So it's because it's so dominant. It's what you've been used to. Because
have you seen Travis Orban? Have you seen his YouTube channel?
I have not.
Okay, Travis Orban is a ambidextrous open hand player. He plays metal music, and he's a monster on those double pedals, man. He's a metal drummer. In fact, there's a lot of metal drummers that are open-handed. A good proportion, good percentage of metal drummers can play open-handed.
I would say I do too, yeah, and it's definitely more.
Check out Travis Orban. Yeah, he's good. Orban.
Okay.
I'm not taking away from any of the other. I don't want to single out one of the cover drummers in our community and exclude. There's a lot of drummers whom I could recognize is good, but I don't want to leave anybody out. But I singled out Travis Orban in particular because he plays open-handed and ambidextrous. He has a very unique style.
Yeah.
His setup's very unique, too.
I'll have to check it out. I guess you talked about influences earlier with Ian Pasty and some of the other guys. Were there anybody else who were big influences in your life?
Joe English, because I saw him in 1984 in concert. He used to play for Paul McCartney. He's an open-handed player. So, again, after I saw Jack Kelly play open hand, I said to myself, yeah, man, I got to do that. Then 2 years later, I saw Joe English play the same way, and I go, yeah, confirmation. And Bill Maxwell, I would say, was an influence on me. That's about it, really. I mean, you know, I try to take as much as I can from every drummer that I see play. But yeah.
Absolutely. That's how it normally goes when you incorporate some of the styles and I guess their influences too, because they were influenced by previous drummers who had came out of the 30s, 40s, 60s and all that stuff. And bringing it all together is like probably the hardest thing.
Yeah.
You're so used to just doing like, maybe just keep it like nice and simple too. I guess, what was the hardest things trying to learn on drums, when you're trying to become more of a recognized musician?
Well, keeping solid time. If the band leader starts the song out at 100 beats per minute, then it's your job as the drummer to make sure you end the song at 100 beats per minute. So keeping solid time. And Dave Weckl was a good influence as well. I went to one of his clinics, and he said, look, most band leaders are not too concerned about your chops. They're concerned about how well you groove. Okay. He says there are many drummers out there that have had entire careers built on just playing grooves and never played any drum solos. So that instilled me, okay, we got to groove and, keep it tight, keep it solid.
I would say improvising would be probably the hardest thing when it comes to drumming, but I guess that's more for like drum solos because I think I heard that quote from Dave Lombardo, and I could be wrong. Maybe some other drummers that also say, but I guess what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think there's a time and a place for it, but yeah, I probably could stand some improvement in that area, improvisation and solos. And, if you put me up against a really good drummer and I trade fours with them, I don't know how long I would last trading fours. But that's definitely a good aspect of drummers that, that improv aspect is important, especially if you're going to do drum sheds with other drummers. Yeah, that's important. It's all good. It's all important. But, in the venues, the two venues that I'm playing in as a video cover drummer playing CCM, classic CCM, and then I play in church, and, play the standard praise songs or worship songs, or whatever you want to call them. A lot of people call them worship songs. I call them praise songs, but whatever. But yeah, in those two venues, there's really not a lot of room for improv and solos and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you mean too. So, getting back into your YouTube channel, what do you hope to achieve with it?
Well, my immediate goal, again, my main perspective is to promote classic CCM of the 70s, 80s, early 90s, and really bring that to light and let people know that there's more to CCM than Chris Tomlin, Matt Redman, Elevation, and Hillsong, and Bethel, okay? CCM's much broader than that. The CCM genre has been around for more than 50 years. So I want them to see the early side. So that's the main objective. But right now, I think I've got 809 or 810 subscribers, which I'm very proud of. And I want to see that, obviously my next milestone would be 900 subscribers. And then after that, the big milestone, 1,000, I'm really looking forward to getting into the 1,000 club. I'm looking forward to that. Now, another thing I'm very proud of, I have about 463,000 views, and I'm closing in on 500,000 views. That's a disproportionate amount of views, considering that I only have a little over 800 subscribers. And I only have 83 active published videos. So you're talking, only 83 videos. I mean, there are guys that have 2,000 subs in 200 or 300 videos that don't have close to 500,000 views. So that is a huge, and I'm very proud of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, numbers for YouTube, they can get a little confusing at times, and I know a couple of friends in our community, they say, like, just don't focus on the numbers, just make the content what you do, and then everything else will kind of fall into place. But then you find it funny, too, with, like, some of these other YouTubers, like you mentioned, they have all the subs, don't have all the videos, maybe not entirely double the views, but they at least have some sort of viewership and stuff like that. So it's almost like, what gives? That sort of thing. So
there's another statistical number. If you go to the analytics section of your YouTube channel called APV, APV, annual average percentage viewed. Now, that's also a very important statistical number that I just recently learned. And the higher that number is, that also pushes your videos out into the feed, not just the number of likes and views. So when you have a person watch your video, you want them to watch that video from the beginning all the way to the end. So the duration of the view. And if your APV is 50% or more in the YouTube world, in the algorithm world, that's considered good. So you want your APV to be at least 50% or better. So I'm working on trying to get that better. And that's one of the reasons when I do non-drum covers, because sometimes I'll do teaching videos or lectures or whatever. I try to keep the videos no more than 15 minutes. So that ensures that the APV will be a little higher, because if you get too long-winded, you get into 30 minutes, 40 minutes, they may not stick around.
Yeah, it's the attention span. It keeps decreasing from each generation. They struggle with probably just 10 minutes. But I know what you mean too, and it's like, if you do videos that are longer and it's like not the very much interesting kind of videos, then they're not going to like stick around and like stay for it too. So it is a little bit of a bummer, because I think having these kind of conversations, there's some good things to like learn like here and there. So you would kind of wish people would, especially what you're teaching as well. You would think people would at least stick around a little bit longer, at least see like, hey, this guy's teaching some good stuff. I'll sub to his channel and help him out, that sort of thing. I don't know. People are weird at times. I have to say that people are just weird at times. So. But
sometimes when I watch a long video, like I've watched interviews that you do, drums by Ash Wells, the Drumatic when he does the backbeat, Drumman 190. Who am I leaving out? There's another guy that does. When I start talking about people, Earl Bennett. But Earl doesn't do it regularly though. He does it here and there, Drumman 190, Drumatic, drums by Ash Wells, and then y'all are a little more regular at interviewing cover drummers, so, but yeah, now what was I going to say about that? But yeah.
I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I know, but I actually interviewed all 4 of those guys too, and really nice people too, and they're really doing a good job. I guess,
very nice.
Okay, say something about what each of them are doing in terms of their interviews, or just
well, they both have their own. I know all of them have their own style, their own interview technique, their own format, and that's good, And I enjoy watching and listening. Oh, here's what I was going to say. Now, those interviews sometimes last the better part of an hour. So sometimes I might watch 15 minutes, put it in pause, go do something, come back a couple hours later, watch another 15 minutes, go do something, come back. So sometimes when I watch these long videos, sometimes I don't watch it all in one setting. Sometimes I'll break it up. Or let's say if I'm washing the dishes, working in the kitchen, I can put my iPhone here, listen to the interview while I'm doing a task. So, yeah, I figure out ways to, watch the longer videos.
Yeah, I see what you mean too. And you know what? Funny enough, I actually find myself doing the same thing at times, especially if I'm just going in to like copy and paste like some of the material from the description and put it in my other video. I find I'll watch like maybe a little bit of it, and I'll just pause and be like, okay, I already listened to the whole hour when I was editing it. I think I get the point at this point. So,
right.
So, yeah, but it's funny with Ash Wells, because he's starting to do the Back to the Future kind of theme. So he does it now with like people.
You sure that's Ash Wells?
It is Ash Wells. I saw his recent video. He does it with Back to the Future.
I thought he did Under the Covers.
No, that's actually Drummer's Key. That's
Yeah, Drummer's Key is Under the Covers. Drumman 190, his show is 5 Strokes at 5. Drumatic is called The Backbeat. Drummer's Key is Under the Covers. Drum Ash by Wells is Back to the Covers. Earl Bennett is either hanging with the hammer or conversation. When he does that, then if you, of course, you call yours All Music Matters, Nat.
And that.
In that.
Yeah. And,
well, I got 6 of you guys.
Yeah. Actually,
I had to write all you guys down so I make sure. Okay, here are the cats that do the interviews of other cover drummers. So, there you go.
Well, actually, we were talking about it too in the comments there, and you were kind of questioning where'd you get "and that," and it was because that's it's a dialect thing. I mean, you got y'all in the South, and then we got "and that" and yins, we got whoosher, pop, and stuff like that. That's at least the main stuff. There's plenty of others.
I knew about pop.
Well, that's like the main stuff out of the Pittsburgh region, and like there's tons of other ones. I kind of wish I knew.
Yeah, it's good to know northern colloquialisms.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what it is. It's just people just start talking like it one day. And I guess it was probably just because it's such like an integrated form of like European dialects and stuff like that. Mostly Irish, but we got like German, a little bit of Italian and stuff like that all up in here. I think it just formed together. It just those words just came and it just stuck. Yinzer and stuff like that. So Yins guys, that's the main one, but
yeah,
you get the idea. We do our own dialects.
Oh yeah, we've got plenty of colloquialisms in the South. Plenty.
Southern hospitality.
That's yeah.
But
how you doing?
I would say when it came to the name, I was really just trying to think it through, but like that kind of stuck with me because there was, I think it's a magazine, it was called All Music, that sort of thing. It was Music Matters, one of those guys. It was really meant to be more inclusive, that sort of thing. Like
sure.
So I decided to throw in that in so people knew it was the Pittsburgh dialect there and that sort of thing. So you get the idea at this point. So.
Mm-hmm.
But get back into drumming. Is your drum set nearby by any chance? We kind of jumped on this question a little late, but better late than never.
No, it's not. It's at the other end of the house. And my studio's probably not the best place to have an interview, but I did bring my DW snare.
DW snare. How big is that?
DW collector, so it's a 14-inch. I don't know what the thickness is. I think it's a 4. I don't think it's a 3.5. It's a collector series. And very proud of this snare. In fact, it's the best part of my drum kit because the rest of my kit, the drum parts anyway, are bought here in Brazil. Which that's a whole nother story, but because I do have a drum kit that's still in the United States, but drum kits aren't something you can put in a suitcase very, very well. So I figured it'd be more feasible to buy a drum kit down here. Now I bought this DW at Guitars. No, I didn't buy it at Guitar Center. What am I saying? I bought it at a DW drum store in Houston. They have this listed at $500, and the owner of the store cut me a deal. I said, "Well, I'll let it go for $400." And it's a great snare, and of course it's red. I think he wanted to move the red snare drum from his inventory because it wasn't moving very fast. And I was in the market for a red one because my kit is also red. Not the same kind of red this red is, but close enough. If you were standing 100 feet away from my drum set, you probably wouldn't be able to see the different shades. It'd probably blend in. You have to get up close to see that this is a little darker shade than my palms of the bass drum. But the Brazilian drum set's a knockoff. It's because buying top grade drum equipment here in Brazil is expensive because the Brazilian economy is very protectionist. So if Ludwig, Tama, DW, Pearl were to get their drum equipment imported into Brazil, they'd have to pay a high import tax. And of course, the merchants, they will pass that import tax onto the consumer. They don't pay the import tax out of the goodness of their heart. So the consumer will pay, and that's why it costs so much. And I'm kind of retired living on a limited budget. We only had so much money, so I just bought I bought a knockoff brand, and what I did is I bought new drum heads in the States, and I bought new rims, good rims. Got rid of those old flimsy old rims. Got good heads, and it sounds okay, you know. And if I were to go out in public and do a gig, I wouldn't embarrass myself too bad. You know? I mean, is this as good as this kit that I have in America? No, but it's okay.
I was going to say, was it made in China?
I think it was made in Taiwan, which...
Close enough.
Yeah.
I will say, yeah, because actually I got the bass over here, and we always call these stuff that doesn't like sound good, we always call it like Chinese ripoffs, because a lot of stuff, you kind of get it, it's all made in China, so when it comes here, it doesn't sound good or it's not good, we just call those Chinese ripoffs, that sort of thing. But I guess, have you ever played with electric sets before?
Yes, I have.
Do you have one on you by any chance?
I do not. I had an Alesis Command X Mesh electronic drum kit. When I moved to Florida, our storage space wasn't big enough. You know, because we just have a one-bedroom economy apartment, because we only go back to the States on furlough. We spend most of our time here in Brazil, okay? And I couldn't store it anywhere. And Earl Bennett lives like, maybe 20, 25 minutes from me. He lives in Palm Beach. I live in Boca Raton. And I said, hey, Earl, would you like an electronic drum kit? And he says, well, okay. And I brought it and gave it to him. He says, yeah, use it or give it to somebody else if they need a drum kit. Just as long as the drum kit's a blessing. Then I heard one of his electronic brains went out, and he had to use the Alesis brain that was on my kit. Ask Earl. He'll tell you all the details.
I did interview him already, though. I think I might have to have a nice little talk with him, because I was trying to get a collab with him recently. I don't know if we're going to do Kansas's Carry On Wayward Son or something else. I
love that song.
I do love it too, but he had a video already of it, and he's just like, do you just want to use this, or do you want me to just do it over again, that sort of thing? I don't know. I have to think about it, because I think that it's been covered a good bit, so I thought maybe change it up, maybe.
Good song. I like it. I don't know if I'd ever cover it. I do have the score to that song.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's old sheet music and everything?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Oh, there's a lot of, in the secular classic rock pop genre, there's a lot of songs that have the drums part scored out. Lots.
Do you use a lot of sheet music for your covers, or do you just
memorize
it?
No, I'm 65 years old, man. I can't remember. My brain doesn't remember as well as it used to. And so, yeah, I have the sheet music right in front of me, and I'm actually looking at it while I'm playing. Now, y'all don't know that because the music is off camera. I don't, but yeah. But the problem with the CCM Classics, because it was a small market genre, they don't have sheet music for the drum scores. Mm. So if I want that drum part scored up, I got to score it. So I've scored up so every drum solo or every drum cover that I've done, I've actually taken the time to score it myself, then print it out, put it on the stand, and then play it. Yeah.
Plug and play, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You and Earl have been good friends for a good while, or you just recently become friends?
We recently became friends in 2017.
Okay.
In fact, I interviewed Earl.
Did you?
On my channel in 2017 or 18, something like that. And then after then my wife and I, we wanted to move to Fort Lauderdale, or at least the Fort Lauderdale area, because we live that way. When we fly to Brazil, it's just a one way. There's no connecting flight. It's a direct flight. Where when we were living in Houston, you'd have to take a connecting in Fort Lauderdale to go to Houston. He was a house sell, so we said, man, let's just move to Florida. And so we don't live, because Boca Raton's a little bit north of Fort Lauderdale, but close enough to the airport. So yeah, I already knew that Earl lived in West Palm Beach, when I was living in Texas, and then we were contemplating, moving to Florida. I said, hey, Earl, guess what? We're moving to Florida. He says, great. Well, when you get here, look me up. And I said, sure. I've been over to his house a couple of times, been to his studio. And, in fact, he interviewed me on Conversations on his interview show.
Yeah, he hasn't got me yet, but I at least got him on my little interview station, so that's at least an accomplishment there.
Yeah,
he did talk about his studio a little bit, especially his experiences with working with artists. Obviously, he's met some who were like troublesome, not as very good, and like trying to know how to do the whole studio thing and like how to get I guess we would just say EP, maybe even just a record, or let alone a song recorded. So he shared a lot of good advice. I have to admit, he shared some good pearls of wisdom, so to speak.
Earl is a freaking encyclopedia of drum equipment. He knows his way around a recording studio, video editing. So he's proficient, highly proficient in all the aspects of what it would take to produce not only a video drum cover, but an album as well. So yeah, if I had written 10 songs and wanted to do an album, put together an album, Earl would probably be the first place I'd go. Say, hey, Earl, can you help me produce this album? Yeah. So also he's a very, very versatile drummer. In addition to all of his technical skills, he's very versatile.
Absolutely.
He can play the big band, the jazz, the yacht rocks. Now you don't see him play heavy metal. I don't know how well he would do with double pedals and all that. But other than that one genre, he's pretty versatile. He can play many different styles. So yeah, of all the cover drummers in our community, I would say that Earl is the complete package.
All put together, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean too. Absolutely.
And he uses visuals, maybe not to the extent that Double Deuce does, but he can do that if he wants to. So,
yeah, sometimes I throw in some visuals, maybe some little videos like here and there, just kind of like simulate, because there's parts of there's like instrumentals where the drums are not like playing or like doing very little and stuff like that. So it's more for effect, if anything. So I'm assuming that's what Double Deuce does too. So I don't think did you say what brand of your cymbals were? And I guess what are your toms?
The cymbals are Zildjians. Right now, my two crashes I have two 16-inch Scimitar bronze made by Zildjian. And the reason I picked that is because they're a little dark. They give you that dark sound. Because when I record my videos, I use the remote mic on the video camera. And the crash cymbals are the closest thing to the microphone on the camera. And if the cymbals are too bright, it washes out. It's too much. So I do that to keep a balance. And then I put a microphone on the bass drum and hook it up to a small amp. And I put the amp next to the video camera. So because the bass drum is the furthest away from the remote mic on the video camera. So I want people to hear the bass drum. And so that's how I do it. And then I put a light inside the bass drum where people can, see the mallet hit the bass drum and hear it. So the hi-hats are 13-inch Zildjian Ks. And then I have a splash cymbal, 10-inch splash Zildjian S, I believe. I don't use the splash cymbal that much, but if I do, I put it in between the two 16-inch Scimitar bronze. If there's a song that I play that actually calls for a splash cymbal or a low-grade crash, I'll put that on the stand.
Seems appropriate. Yeah, that seems to be where they mostly put that kind of stuff there. And I guess, what brand are your sticks?
My sticks are ProMark. And the reason I use ProMark is because I grew up in the Houston area, and the ProMark drumstick factory is in Houston. And I knew the owner of the ProMark drumstick company. His name was Herb Brockstein. He originally owned a music store called Brockstein's, and the drum instructor there was Joe Raynor. He was my drum teacher, and I'd go in my drum teacher, Joe Raynor's studio, and you'd see all these ProMark drumsticks, and I'd pick it up and say, yeah, ProMark, cool. But the reason I stayed with ProMark, obviously, is I wanted, because it was a local company, I wanted my Houston dollars to stay in Houston, not taking anything away from Vader or Vic Firth, because they've got good drumsticks too. Now, ProMark's been bought out by, then Herb Brockstein's son, Maury, bought the company from his dad. And then sometime in recent years, maybe, I don't know when, but there's this other company that bought out, I forgot the name of the company. Sometimes they actually put it on the drumstick, but they don't put it on here. But it's no longer owned by the Brocksteins anymore. It's owned by an international music company. Now you go into Guitar Center. When the Brocksteins owned the company, you could go into Guitar Center. You'd go to the drumsticks, and they were well stocked with ProMarks. You could get your ProMarks, wood tip, nylon tip, whatever. Get what you want, as many as you want. But now it's been taken over by this other company. You go into Guitar Center, you don't find they're not as well stocked with ProMark anymore like they used to be. So I'm kind of disappointed in ProMark. They're not as aggressive in their marketing like they used to be. So you hear that, Vic Firth?
Hey, be careful what you say. I say be careful what you say. I use Vic Firth too. So
yeah.
But have you ever experimented with any other sticks before jumping to ProMark, or you always use ProMark your whole life?
I've used ProMark pretty much my whole life, but I won a bunch of Vic Firth drumsticks in a drawing one time when I went to a drum clinic. I went to a Chad Wackerman drum clinic one time, and at these drum clinics you can enter your name into drawings, and I won a bunch of Vic Firth drumsticks there. So I've used Vic Firth. They're good. I mean, I don't have anything derogatory to say about other other drumstick companies. I guess I'm just partial to ProMark because I'm from Houston. But now I don't live in Houston anymore.
Yeah,
so I can be courted. You hear that, Vader?
Yeah, actually, it's just the belly of the beast when it comes to business competition or that sort of thing. And some of these bigger, well-known chains just absorbing all these small chains, that sort of thing. Yeah. So you see what happens, and it's just what happens, even though we gotta roll our eyes at it too. So, do you have a preference when it comes to electric or acoustic kits?
I prefer acoustic. By the way, I meant to tell you that on the Alesis drum, the Alesis Command X Mesh, I did a 2-part video series, and you can see that on my channel, CCM Drummer, where I display the features. So I did 2 videos. Here's what the Alesis Command X Mesh drum set does. Here's what you can do with it. And I took my drumsticks, played it, and said, okay, here's the sound. And I exhibited all the features in those 2 videos. And I've got almost 40,000 views combined on those 2 videos. So those 2 videos are one of the reasons I'm closing in on 500,000 views. So yeah, that video series, that 2-part series served me quite well. So I got a lot of views out of it. So yeah, if y'all are interested in what the benefits are of the Alesis Command X Mesh, then my two videos would be what you'd want to watch if you want to, before you go make your shopping decisions.
I tend to roll with Roland, and I guess have you ever done anything with Roland before, or you just stuck with Alesis your whole life, or at least as long as you've had electric kits?
Well, Alesis is the only one that I ever bought. I might have played. I played for one church that was so in love with electronic drum kits, but I don't remember if it was a Roland or another brand. And I'm sorry. And electronic drum set kits are good if you're in an apartment or a condo and you want to get along with your neighbors, or if you want to practice at 3 a.m. But man, when it comes to live performances, nothing beats a good acoustic kit, because it's all about vibes, energy, and chemistry. And you just don't. The acoustic kits are a lot more organic than the electronic kits. Now, electronic kits have come a long way because now, and especially with the Alesis Command X Mesh, you can hit it soft and you get a soft sound, and you can hit it hard, get a hard sound, like you do with your acoustic kit. But when electronic kits first came out, no matter how hard you hit the pad on an electronic kit, it was the same volume, whether you hit it soft or hard. But so now, the electronic kits of today, they're more touch sensitive than they were back when they originally came out in the 70s and 80s.
I would say the electric's more for the EDM, some pop, and I guess electronic kind of music too, since that's what they kind of use there in terms of like how the sound and how it's produced and everything too. So I can see what you mean there. You're not really in a crowded neighborhood. Normally when I think of Brazil, especially probably more in Rio de Janeiro, for instance, I usually think of kind of tight suburb kind of neighborhoods. Is yours pretty spread out?
No, it's tight here. We have 0 lot lines here in Brazil. So the wall behind me in my studio, my neighbor's on the other side of that wall.
I guess they're very cool.
Like in America, you have your house here, and usually they have spaces between the house, and then the property line runs down the middle of the space. And sometimes you have a fence. Okay, yeah. Not in Brazil. It's like, here's your house right here. Just on the other side is their house. So fortunately, I got a good neighbor that doesn't complain very much, and they're domestic. My studio's way in the back, and my neighbor's house is more towards the front. So it's not like their bedroom is on the other side of my studio, thank God. If that was, that might be a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, we might have.
But I don't practice too late either.
We have a curfew. We close out at about 9:00, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So walk us through when it comes to doing a drum cover. How do you pick the song, and then what do you use for editing?
Well, I basically, again, I pick from the 70s and 80s and some early 90s classics, try to get the more overlooked, underappreciated artists that most people may not know about. Everybody knows about Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, and Sandy Patty. And I've done songs by those guys. I did one Amy Grant song, did 3 Michael W. Smith. I think I did 1 Sandy Patty song. But I like to focus in on the more obscure. So preparation, obviously, first step is to score the song. And I've got 16 CCM songs, classic CCM songs already scored up that I haven't covered yet. And I had a lot of downtime during the pandemic, had a little extra spare time on my hands. So that's what I did. I scored up a bunch of CCM songs. So now all I got to do is when I finish one CCM song, I'll look in my library of CCM scores. I say, okay, I think I'll play this one. Put it on the stand. And then after it's scored, of course, then I have to analyze the drum patterns, the fills, and work out the sticking. When I see a notation for a crash cymbal, I have to ask myself, okay, we're going to hit this cymbal with my right or my left? this fill pattern. Am I going to go right, left, left, right, or whatever? I got to figure out its sticking pattern, and then I just practice it, and I practice it as many times as I need to, and then the editing is real easy because I don't edit. It's all A-roll, raw footage. The camera's positioned over the right shoulder, where you can see the hi-hat, the snare, the bass drum, and all the components of the kit. And then I introduce the song before I play the song. I like to let people know about the group, about the song. Did the song make the charts? And if so, where on the charts did it place? Did it win any awards? Did the album place on the charts or win any awards? Or did the group win any awards? So I like to give as much background to the song as possible. Some of these CCM artists I've actually met and knew. So if that's the case, I'll say, oh yeah, I met that guy once. I knew him. I talked to him. You know, I'll give you as much backstory on the song as I possibly can, you know, within reason. I don't like to spend too much time doing that because people come to watch the video. So maybe the introduction is maybe 2 or 3 minutes, if that. You know, then I try to get in. I don't really want to be too long. And then I do as many takes as it takes to get a good take. And then, you know, sometimes it takes 8 to 10 takes before it's solid, where I don't make any mistakes. And then, so it's all raw footage, you know. And I turn the video camera on. Hey guys, welcome to my channel, CCM Drummer. My name is Matthew Jackson today, you know. And then after I finish it, I say, okay, thank you for watching. Please feel, you know, I'm looking at the camera. Please subscribe, share, like, comment, and turn it off. That's it.
No effects, nothing like that.
No.
Wow.
I mean, if I had the resources and the know-how to do that, yeah, I would be all open to that. I have GoPro cameras I could set over here, get another angle here, but you got to have the know-how in the editing equipment and the training to do that. So I'm behind a steep curve there. And it's just easier just to turn on the camera. Hey guys, what's up? Okay, drum cover, here we go. Just do it. Okay, thanks for watching. Click.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's just one camera angle?
One camera angle.
Which camera
just
is it?
over the right shoulder. That's it. And the reason I like that is because I want to show the viewer how the original drummer played it, because I'm committed to playing exact. So if the original drummer played it a certain way, I want to try to emulate the original drummer as much as I possibly can. Okay. Now, so the exact concept, that's a conviction that I have, and that's my pledge to my viewers and my subscribers, that when you watch my videos, you're going to watch me playing exact, as close as to what the original drummer played, because I want to maintain originality and authenticity. Now, let me make it very clear. That's not the only way to do a drum cover. So I'm not here saying that if you're not playing exact, then you're not doing a true drum cover. I'm not saying that. If you want to do a stylized version of what the original drummer did, then fine, go ahead. In fact, I watch many of y'all's videos, and y'all do that. And there's some good, fine drummers out there that play stylized, and, you know, no problem. But for CCM drummer plays exact, at least as much as I possibly can. Now, I have 2 toms, one upper tom and then a floor tom. That's it. So if the original drummer, let's say, has 3 or 4 toms, and he's doing a 4-bar fill, and he's using 3 or 4 toms, well, obviously, I'll play that same rhythm pattern, but I'm going to figure out a way to get that rhythm pattern into 2 drums as opposed to 3 or 4. So, but I still consider that to be exact.
I see, yeah. That's kind of how I roll, too. I don't really like to play it sort of note for note. Sometimes when it comes to even like the faster kind of music, you have to probably improvise at some point, making sure that you're still keeping beat with the time.
Yeah.
Have you ever improvised in a couple spots? I guess in terms of like maybe a drum fill.
Uh, there's this one song I did called Higher, Higher. Now, the original song, when it was recorded, didn't have a drum part. There were no drums. So on that particular song, you can't really call it a drum cover. It's a drum accompaniment. So the part that I wrote, what I played on the song Higher, Higher, that's my original composition, drum composition to that song. So, and then when I play in church, the praise music that we play in church, I don't play exactly the way the original drummer played in church. I get the general vibe, the feel. So that playing exact only applies to video drum covers. I need to make that very clear. So when I'm playing in church, I listen to the song when I prepare, maybe take notes on it, know when, because a lot of this worship music today will have these tribal type of tom grooves, and they have all kinds. So I've got to figure. So if that song features that, I've got to figure out, okay, what kind of tribal groove are they playing? I got to try to. If I don't play exactly that, I try to play something close to that. So yeah, this playing exact business only applies to video drum covers.
I see. That's pretty cool, and it looks like it actually really has paid off, to be honest. But yours, I had to admit, just doing like the one camera and just like turning it on and then just like saying, "Hey, here's the drum cover and everything." I had to admit that's the most simplest form, because normally every single one of us, of course, every single one of us at least has some sort of knowledge when it comes to editing and stuff like that. But it's just normally like, here's the introduction, we jump right into the song and everything, play it the whole way through, and then roll the credits, that sort of thing.
Well, I would love nothing more than to do an intro to the video, like in a setting like right now with this backdrop. Say, hey guys, welcome to my channel, CCM Drummer, and the song I'm going to play for you today is blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Here's the background and all that. Thank you for watching, and sit back and enjoy. And then go straight to the studio and play the drum cover. But you have two different videos, and you have to get the editing software, and you'd have to know how to do it. Again, I'm just limited with know-how and resources. So I just make do with what I can do. But yeah, if I could get the know-how, the resources, there's a little bit of a learning curve. And when you get to be 65 years old, you get to be set in your ways.
Yeah,
it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, the younger kids far outweigh the older generations in terms of knowledge. We got everything else now with the iPhones and stuff right now. Have you ever messed with iPhones and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I've got an iPhone.
Do you?
And I saw another baby boomer trying to figure out an iPhone. He said, man, how do you get this thing to work? I said, just ask any millennial. They'll tell you how the thing works. They'll be glad to teach you everything you need to know about your iPhone.
I would say,
even the Gen Z guys know, not just millennials. They're very adept with electronics. It's incredible.
I think it's because it's what we grew up with. That's the thing. I mean, it all came during our time, and then it was like, oh, here we go. Let's try to mess around with this and see what we could do. And next thing you know, we're pretty much probably have like a master's degree in like how to use an iPhone and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, back in my generation in the 70s, video games were very primitive. And, we went outside and played football, basketball, baseball. We went out and played. We didn't sit for hours in front of the TV playing video games. The video games back then were, made by Atari, were so primitive. Now, I watch my son play videos. I mean, it's like the images are so vivid and so real, and the remote controls are, it's incredible what they've done with videos video gaming these days. It's a whole industry.
Yeah, absolutely. It is fun though, and then like you have to honestly give it credit because it's so visually stunning too. I played on those kind of games as well.
They put a lot of work into it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we are almost out of time, but we're down to the last two questions. So,
sure.
The first one: how bad did COVID impact you and your family?
Not too bad. I did catch COVID, and my wife caught COVID, but we didn't get terribly sick from it. Not sick enough to be hospitalized and put on a ventilator. It was like when we caught COVID, it was more like catching the flu. And we were sick for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I'd be dragging around. If I got tired, I'd go take a nap, rest up. When I was rested up, I'd go do something for a couple hours, and I'd get tired, take another nap. And did that for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then we just recovered.
Which is mostly straightly fatigue, yeah.
Yeah, it's fatigue, yeah. And we drank a lot of citric lime juices, and ate healthy foods and drank healthy drinks that would increase our immune system. And that's how we survived it.
A lot of vitamin C, yeah. I can see what you mean.
Yeah.
That seems to be the big thing too. So, and it's good too because normally when I've always asked this question because sometimes COVID kind of opened up other windows of opportunity to allow people to like expand into other projects, so to speak. Did that happen with you? I guess you kind of mentioned it earlier.
Yeah,
right?
I did more. I scored up a bunch of CCM songs that didn't have drum scores that I intend to cover in the future. So yeah, I just used my spare time during the lockdown to score up drum songs, CCM songs, yeah.
That's pretty sweet. I'm looking forward to actually seeing those videos whenever you get to them one of these days. But I got a whole lot of YouTube channels, so it might be a little hard to catch up on everybody. I know it's probably hard with you looking at all of us doing these kind of interviews as well as like seeing our drum covers and stuff like that. It's a lot to take in. So
yeah, I've subscribed to more drum cover channels in recent times now that I've been watching you, Drum Addict, Drum Ash by Wells, Drummers Key, and Drumman 190, and y'all been featuring other cover drummers, and I've been subscribing to more. But yeah, it's hard. Now I will, if I see the video and I like it, if it's solid, I'll give a 3 thumbs up in the comment section. I may not elaborate and say, oh, I like the style and like this, and I won't do a full analysis of the song, but at least I'll put 3 thumbs up, put the emojis. That way, I saw it and I liked it, and, keep up the good work kind of deal. So I try to do that as much as possible. But yeah, it's hard. The more drum channels that you subscribe to, yeah, it's a challenge.
Absolutely too. And I guess, did you ever deal with any negative comments throughout your entire YouTube career? I guess on a YouTube channel, I should just say.
Well, not well. Well, you really know how to hit a sensitive spot there, don't you?
Well, I guess.
Okay. One time when the CCM Drummer channel came to fruition. Let me give you a little history.
Okay.
The channel, I started my YouTube channel in October of 2011. Back then, it was the Matthew Jackson channel. And so I would put, because I do videos on religion, politics, current events, and then I'd throw in my drum videos and drum teaching videos. It was more of a hodgepodge channel. And then in June of 2017, I decided to split the two. Keep the religion, politics, and current events on one channel called Jackson's Journal. And CCM Drummer, I changed the name to CCM Drummer, and I said, I'm just going to keep my drum covers, anything about CCM music or drums, stays on that channel. So separate out because they're two different audiences. So the audience that's going to want to watch my drum covers is not the same audience that's going to want to see me talk about religion, politics, or current events. And when I did that, that paid off huge. Well, anyway, September of 2017, I decided to set the drumming community straight on what a drum cover was. And I said, okay, guys, if you're really going to do a true drum cover, you got to play exact. I got a lot of negative comments for that.
Yeah. There's old guy telling us what to do here.
That's the only time. But I have since removed those videos. I've since rethought my position and attitude towards playing exact versus stylized. And now I'm a little more open-minded to the stylized approach, and I'm not as dogmatic as I was. Now, back then, in 2017 in September, I only had 100 subscribers, just a little over 100. Now, 5 years later, I've got over 800 subscribers. So the channel's grown exponentially since 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, but that's the only time I ruffled some feathers and got negative comments. But hopefully, the stylizers have forgiven me, and we can let bygones be bygones, and we can move on. We're all drumming brothers here, So.
One would hope.
Yeah.
But I guess, do you do anything else on your channel? Like, do you also do vlogs and I guess reviews and stuff like that? Or do you just do strictly drum covers recently?
I do teaching videos. Recently, I've done rebuttal videos. Now, have you ever heard of the Jesus Music movie?
I was trying to think of like a bunch of different movies, but which particular movie was this?
It's called the Jesus Music Movie. It's a documentary on CCM, basically.
Ah, okay.
There was one segment of the movie that I thought that it criticized CCM music unfairly. And so I did a rebuttal video. So if you guys want to check that out, want to know what exactly. So if somebody was to say something that's unfair, inaccurate, or misleading about CCM music, I'll do rebuttal videos, and rebuttal videos are good teaching opportunities. I could do a lot of teaching in a rebuttal video. Then I'll do teaching videos. I did a 5-part series on the history of CCM. I also feature a lot of, not all the content on my video channel I created. Sometimes I've been given permission to upload other people's material, and actually those videos have done very well in the viewership department, and they're one of the reasons I'm closing in on 500,000 views. So you don't necessarily have to be the originator of the material that you put on your YouTube channel. Just put good content on your channel, you'll get views. Now, I may not be able to monetize the third-party videos like you can if you do your original videos. But yeah, in fact, my original content videos and then the third-party videos, those get more views than the actual covers do.
I see. That's good too. It's good what you're doing as well. So best of luck going forward to you there, brother. All right. Well, we are almost out of time, as I did say earlier, but I kind of jumped into a bunch of other questions. So let's jump to the last question here. So you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. I know you did see the questions, and I know this one may seem cliche, but I always like to ask it because I think these days people really need some sort of hope. And I think trying to share it out there with the world, I think it should really mean a lot. I think it would make people's days. So what sort of message of hope could you give to musicians out there, as well as people?
Well, just my main thing is I think that God has given all musicians a gift in playing music, the ability to create music. There's a certain magic about music that you just, remember when Saul was being tormented by demons in the Old Testament, and they got David to play the harp and sing before Saul. And then when he played music to Saul, it soothed Saul, and the demons left and quit tormenting him. Well, music has that kind of power and magic. And so I think it's important that you acknowledge where your gift came from, that God gave you that gift, and be a good steward of that gift that God gave you. That would be my message anyway.
Absolutely. And it's good to see you tied in a biblical reference too, because I think you could definitely see how those stories connect even to everyday life as well. So just in terms of the music wise, because I know people find some things with the Bible controversial, but that one.
Well, there's another story in the book of Acts when Paul and Silas were in jail, and they started singing hymns. And when they sang hymns, what happened? An earthquake happened. The chains that were binding them fell off. The prison doors was open because they sang. They gave music. Again, that's another biblical example of the mystical magic that music can provide. So people are in chains. Sometimes you can be addicted to something. You don't necessarily have to be in prison to be in prison. You can be in prison by depression, a dependency on alcohol or drugs, or maybe a hard situation you're facing at work or something like that. Music has a way of helping you break through those chains.
Absolutely. So, everything has a way to get you out of something here. You just got to put your mind to it, that sort of thing. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Spoken like a true prodigy. That's what I like to say. All right. So, Matt, we've reached the end of my podcast right here. Did you have any questions for me or any shout outs?
Oh, well, I'm afraid to do shout outs because if I do, I'll leave somebody out. And there's so many doggone good drummers out there that, I could do a shout out to a lot of folks, but there's just a lot of good drummers out there that I enjoy watching. And it may not even be, in fact, I like watching some of the younger, the Gen Z, the Gen Ys and the Gen Zs, because I'm not familiar with their music. So watching their covers helps me get in touch with them. Just like for those of you out there that are not familiar with CCM music, especially the classics, if you're not familiar, that's the reason you ought to subscribe to my channel, okay? And you may not be familiar with it, but you watch my channel, I'll get you familiar. And so, the one hand washes the other, but yeah, I enjoy watching Joey Clark. He's very good. Dude is rock solid, man. That's why he does Led Zeppelin songs so well. It's because he's rock solid. He plays like John Bonham. That's why he owns those Led Zeppelin songs. Have you ever seen him cover Led Zeppelin?
I haven't seen his Led Zeppelin ones, but I know him and I did a Pantera song together. And
yeah,
I showed you me. Yeah, his set's pretty awesome. Joey's a good.
Oh, he owns Led Zeppelin, man. But there's Tate Berkey is very good. And of course, Trey B, you can't say enough. Now he's a metal drummer, and he has his hi hat like 5 miles in the air here, and he's going.
Yeah, to each his own. I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, everybody's got their unique setup, their unique style. Sarge Drums is another open-hander that plays open-handed. He's very good. There's a lot of good drummers out there. And again, I hate mentioning one drummer because then if I do, I leave out other drummers.
I was going to say, let's circle E, all the above. We'll just do that. Yeah, we'll give it that symbol.
So I can appreciate, even if it's not my genre of music and maybe not my style, maybe they play cross-handed and I play open. I can still appreciate what they do, and sometimes I learn something. So
the teacher learns from the students, so to speak.
Yeah.
That sort of thing, yeah. All right. So just want to make sure. Any last words before we officially close out?
I think we're good to go here. Let's put it in the can and upload it.
And call it a day. All right.
Yeah.
So everyone, my guest today was Matt Jackson, hailing from Brazil. Wish him best luck going forward. Make sure you go and check out his YouTube channel. Is there any other way people can reach you?
CCM Drummer.
YouTube name CCM Drummer. That's what he told us. Is there any other way they can reach you?
Well, I'm at Matthew A. Jackson on Facebook. So yes, those, my YouTube channel or my Facebook page.
One or the other. Okay. Just making sure though, because most people have like multiple social media channels. Just want to make sure our websites.
I have an Instagram account, but I don't use it because I don't understand how Instagram works. Where I get Facebook and I get YouTube, but I don't get Instagram. I don't get it up here mentally, even though I have an account. So just because you have an account doesn't mean you use it and know how to use it.
Oh God, you're old. That sort of thing.
Yeah. And I even have a Twitter account, but I haven't used that in ages either. So. But yeah, Facebook and YouTube.
Facebook and YouTube. All right. So, Matthew, thank you again so much for coming on and sharing your pearls of wisdom here, buddy. Stay safe.
You're very welcome, and it was a privilege and an honor.
Stay safe. Stay tuned, y'all.
You do the same. Take care.